Alright, so for the first part of the tutorial, I'll be showing you how to create your outlines. I set up a custom workspace with all the tools necessary to create my illustration. So for the most part, I'll be using basic shapes like the rectangle tool and the ellipse tool, the line segment tool, and perhaps the pen tool. Depends, because I like to work with the geometric shapes to build my illustrations and to stylize a bit. So the object that I'd like to draw is this fan. I won't be tracing it, but I did set up like a guideline to have like a sense of proportion to get everything right. I also set up this custom workspace over here. So I'll be using the stroke a lot. My example layer is this one, so I'm going to lock this one. I'm also going to lock my guides, and I'm going to start with my line work. So I'll be drawing strokes, and as you can see, I've also I'm using a keycaster, so you can see the shortcuts I'm using. It's a bit small, but I think it'll do for just now. It's the first time I'm doing this, so I hope it's a bit helpful for you guys. Okay, so I'm just going to start with wheels, and for this I'm just going to draw an ellipse. I'm going to set my stroke to black. I like this, and I'm going to increase the weight, and I'm going to make like a pretty fat outline. So that's that. What I like to do is I like to copy the shape, and I like to paste it in front. So now I have like two circles laying upon one another, and now I'm just going to scale this circle down so that I have like the inner part of the car. I'm going to set a line to like 15 pixels. I'm going to start with like 12 or something. Maybe it was a bit too big. So, and nothing has to be like perfect at once. I'm going to adjust it on the fly to get everything the way I want it. So I'm going to use my stroke tool to just draw this straight line. So if you hold the shift key, you can draw straight lines like this. And I also use my arrow keys a lot just to fix the position. So if you hold the shift key and you press your arrows, it moves in bigger steps. You can also use them without the shift key to move in smaller steps. Okay. I'm going to add one more circle to give it a bit more depth. Now for this specific illustration, I'll be using like the same stroke weight for the most part. To keep it kind of balanced. It's not necessary, but for this style or type of illustration, I like to do it this way. Okay. Now I'm going to hit Command G to group it. If I press the Option key, I can duplicate the entire tire to the right. So I'm going to put it in place like this. So that's that for the tires. And now I'm just going to draw the shape of the van in. So I'm going to use the rectangle tool I'm going to use my guides, and I'm just going to draw in this shape. For the window, I'm going to add an anchor point on my rectangle. So if I select the top point with my direct selection tool, I can actually bring it in like this to create the shape for the window. On the rear, I'm going to do the same. So I'm going to bring this in a bit, and you'll see that afterwards I'll use the round corners feature to round everything off and give it a more organic feel. All right, now I was using the shape builder tool. So what I mostly do is when I draw a line, and let's say I draw an ellipse, and I would like to keep like this part. The way I use the shape builder tool is I just hold the option key and I get rid of the parts I don't need by clicking on the strokes. And then afterwards, if I'm satisfied, I select the anchor points and I press Command J to join them. So if I would switch from stroke to fill, I've got like an entire shape. So that's the way I use the shape builder tool most of the time. I've seen people use it joining shapes, but I feel like sometimes it does leave a lot of trash in the pot, and I like to keep the pot a bit more clean, so that's why I do it like this. So now I'm just playing around my lines and shapes to get a sense of dimension and perspective and stuff right. So another technique I like to use is the following. So I'm just going to bring this one in a bit, and I'm going to draw it a bit at an angle to have like the sense of the window. And now I'm just going to zoom in a bit, and I'm just going to like cut a line. So you can grab the scissors tool, and I'm going to do the same over here. So like really close to this edge, because I'm going to increase the strokes weight to have something like this will do. And then I'm going to use my line, and I'm going to round the gaps. So let's say something like that. I'm going to bring this one a bit back, because I just want to have it like overlap a little bit, and then I'm going to gently round this one off a bit. So you can do this by grabbing the direct selection tool, hitting the anchor point, and then you can select like the little circle, and if you just pull it in, you can round your corners. But for this part, so once you're satisfied with the positioning of this line, so I'm actually like going to create this entire part. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go to Object, and I'm going to go to Expand. So it's going to make it a fill instead of a stroke like this. And now I'm just going to use the stroke once more like this to have it as an outline once more. And then I'm going to use my shape builder tool to get rid of like the inner pieces I do not need. So that's how I create that shape. So that's already coming together pretty nice. So we've also got like the upper part over here. So I'm going to draw another line for that one, bring it down a bit. Like this, and I'm just going to leave it like that because I'm going to focus on my windows, and it might be that this one's a bit too high, but I think like the overall shape is a bit higher, so I'm going to bring this one down a bit, and I'm going to bring this one up a bit more to get the proportions a bit better. And that's the fun part, like you can keep on playing around with the anchor points. You can adjust everything on the fly until you get something that looks good for you. All right, so now I'm going to start by adding the windows. So I'm just going to duplicate this layer. I'm going to bring it down like this, and I'm going to do the same for the bottom part. Till we have something that looks a bit like this. Then I'm going to use my direct selection tool. So I select this line. I'm going to copy it once more and paste it into place. So now I've got like the line as a separate part, and I'm just going to move it to the right so I can use it to build my window. And then I'm going to draw in these lines again. And then I'm going to like try and get the spacing about right, so I can start working on my windows. And I'm going to use the same technique as I did with this one. So I'm just going to increase the stroke weight. So like this, and I'm going to go to Object, and then I'm going to say Expand, hit OK, Shift X, and now I'm just going to delete all of the overlapping parts like this. So make sure you have all your shapes selected, so Illustrator knows which parts are overlapping, because else it just won't work the way you want to. You don't have to do it this way, it's just the way I work. There might be an easier way, but I just like to do it like this. So okay, I accidentally hit my edges, so put them back on. So it is a bit of work like this. You might say, like, why not just draw a rectangular shape, which would also do, but it's just like everybody has to find like their own way to do things the way they want to, I suppose. Make this one a bit longer. And then I'm going to start by drawing in this door piece. So I'm just going to use simple strokes. And I'm going to bring in like this part. So I'm going to draw a rectangle. And I'm going to align it to the tire. And give it enough space. Now I must say tires, like, I usually get the proportions off at the start, so they're usually like a bit too small. So this might be the case for this piece, but I will also show you how you can adjust it. So I'm going to bring it down a bit, and then I'm going to round these corners. It's a bit too wide, so going to bring these in a bit more. Until I have something like this. And once more, using the Shape Builder tool, I'm going to get rid of the parts I no longer need. The angle should be a bit more exaggerated. So it's a bit of trial and error, as you can see, until you get everything the way you want it to. So I'm going to keep it like this also before rounding the corners. So and I think that this is like pretty okay. So I'm going to keep it like that. Select these 2 points with my direct selection tool, and I'm also going to slightly round these off. Same with the nose. Going to round off this part. And for the top part, I'm going to use the shape to draw it out, like this. I'm going to give it another color. And the reason why I did it like that is so I can also round off this part a bit. Now I'm going to round this, and I'm going to bring this in a bit more, so we can also round it. And this part I actually no longer need. I'm just going to scale it up a bit so it overlaps with these lines, and that way I can also get rid of those lines. So it might be a bit too much, but it's easily fixed. Not really happy with the way this is looking. So I'm just going to cut it up again, get rid of the part I don't like. Zoom out, have another look. Maybe make it a bit less steep and also round it off like this a bit more. So yeah, I'm going to keep it like that. And now I'm just going to get rid of the inner shapes. So let's see what we've got here. Okay. So now I'm using the pen tool. To draw in like this line that you can see over here. I'm going to select this one with my direct selection tool and I'm going to round it off. So I'm going to move this over a bit so it follows like this direction a bit better. So that's looking better already. Round it over here and round this one a bit. I'm going to make the window a bit longer. And give it a bit more spacing. Or like this line is. So the reason why I do it like this is it's also a good exercise to train your eye to get the proportions a bit better. And as you can see, once you start to add in the things it needs, it starts to come together a bit better. I'm going to make this one a bit more wide, and I'm going to do the same for like the rear. This can be a bit longer. And then I'm just going to bring in the tire once more. So that's the fun part, everything is still adjustable. I'm going to use another rectangle, and as you can see, like this part's a bit lower than the previous one. So we're using the same technique. Rounding this off. And then I'm going to get rid of the parts I don't need. And for the tire, I'm going to do the same. Like this. And this is the part like I mentioned before, so I think the tires need to be a bit bigger. I feel like they were a bit too small. So and now I'm going to finish up the windows. So I'm going to add in the last details. So let's say we've got like two spokes over here, and if you want to distribute them evenly, what I mostly like to do is I just draw the line, give it another color, duplicate it, duplicate it again, repeat the step, and then I select them all, and then I just evenly distribute them using these align tools. So like this, I get rid of the two parts I do not need, and I just color them in. Sorry, like that. And now I'm just going to start by rounding off these corners. So that will do. Right, so the main shape is kind of like done or coming together. I'm still going to put in this window. So for this, I'm just going to use the pen tool. and draw a shape that looks a bit like this. And then once more, I'm just going to round the corners and going to get rid of the parts I don't need using the shape builder tool. So as you can see, it's also a lot of like repetitive steps to get to the desired result. And once you get the hang of it, it isn't like that hard to do. Just have to practice and be patient. So that's looking better, I think. Feel like this part should be a bit more up. The same goes for the windows. So that's like so that's looking a bit better. I just have to make sure that I like adjust the things that are a bit out of proportion. So once again, selecting these shapes, distributing them evenly. Over here, like, throw it in again, round it off a bit better. Let's see. So that's looking a bit better. To make this a bit longer. And you can see like it's all about the proportion, getting the proportions right. So this is looking pretty okay. Can also add in bottom stroke, so it doesn't look like the van is floating. And I'm going to bring this up a bit to round it, so we have a bit more sense of depth. You can do the same with this part. So if you just add in an anchor point and another, we think and do the same over here. So I'm just going to move this over here a bit. So let me do this again. I'm just thinking about the easiest way to do it. So I'm just going to do it like this. So I'm going to delete this part. And have this join up. And then I'm going to round this one off. Yeah, something like that. And join these shapes again. Now I'm going to do the same for this part. So it gives a bit more sense of depth like this. Alright, I'm going to bring in this piece over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line so I've got like the same angle, and then I'm just going to increase the line like this, and then I'm going to draw a circle. Let's see. So I'm going to do this a bit different actually, because I don't really like the way it's looking in the image itself. So I'm just going to do it like this. Now what I like to do is I like to use the blend tool. I'm going to choose for specified steps. So 8 is too much. I'm going to bring it down a bit. And so this will do. Go to Object, Blend, Expand. And with my Shape Builder tool, I'm just going to get rid of the stuff I don't need. And then I'm going to join everything together. Round it off a bit, and then I'm just going to put it back into place. Adjust the angle. So everything is looking good. So I increase the stroke a bit because I do think it's looking better with a thicker stroke. And then I'm going to draw the window once more. I'm going to show you another way you could actually also do it. So if you just draw on a rectangle, grab the anchor points and you shear the entire shape, you'll also get what you want. I'm going to bring in these parts. It's actually pretty simple. I usually choose to draw in a simple rectangle for this. And then I'm just going to get rid of the stuff inside that I do not need. And then I'm just going to make a duplicate to the back. And I'm going to make it a bit shorter. Like that. So this part might be feeling a bit stiff at the moment, so I'm going to add in an anchor point. And bring it in a bit. And then using the pen tool, I'm going to round this a bit more. So that's looking a lot better already. I'm going to do the same with this. Make the front a bit longer. And I'm just gonna keep it like that. So the proportion might be off a bit, but I'm not too bothered. It's a bit too much. So we've got like this line over here. Using the line tool, I'm just going to draw on this line like this. So I've also got a bit more sense of depth in this piece. And also at the back. And then I'm going to bring in the last details, so like the tiny reflector over here. I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm also going to place it over here. And I'm going to use a fill instead of a stroke because it's getting a bit too big. And just for detail, I'm going to draw another bottom line. And the handle for the door. So I'm going to keep it very simple. Just going to draw out another line. Select my ellipse tool. And I have it like that. So it's a bit big at the moment. Alright, so we're almost done with our outlines, but I'm going to add in some final details. So I'll be using the live paint feature, and I'm also like I'm going to close in these gaps and make them entirely black, as you'll see in a moment. And over here I'm just going to make it a bit more like the true bottom of a car. round this off. So, one last thing. So I'm going to draw a rectangle, and then I'm going to go to Effect, and I'm going to use the Warp tool, and I'm going to use the arch for the light at the front of the car. Oh. So I expanded the appearance. And now I'm just going to get rid of this part, and then I'm going to round off the corners like that. So I'm kind of satisfied with the way that this is looking right now. So now I'm just going to select everything. I'm going to lock my line work layer in case I want to go back and adjust something, but I'm going to make an outlines layer. So I'm going to paste it into place, and I'm going to go to Object, Expand, hit OK. So now everything went from lines to fill, and I'm just going to use the pathfinder and unite the shapes. And for the next step, I'm going to say Object, Live Paint, Make, and now I'm just going to fill in these parts because I also want to have these filled with black. And as you can see, like it's starting to come together a lot better this way. Now I'm going to say like Object, Live Paint, Expand, and I'm going to join these shapes. And I'm going to do the same thing once more. So Object, Live Paint, Make. But now I'm going to choose a different color because I want to give a bit more sense of depth on the inside. So I'm going to color in these. I'm going to do it another way. It's a bit I'm actually going to go a few steps back. I'm going to draw them as paths, which I will also be filling as I did with the bottom part. It's going to be a bit easier, I think. Okay, so as you can see, we've got like this window part. So I'm just going to duplicate this, paste it in place. I'm going to move it over here, and then I'm just going to make it a bit smaller. Like this. And then I'm going to mirror it. Press copy. And I'm going to do the same. So I'm first going to do this vertically, hit copy. And then I'm going to do the same horizontally. So that these sides match with one another. So something like this will do. And this shape we're once more going to fill it in with black. So over here we've got like the same thing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to draw in a line. And look at the proportions. So I think that this is actually pretty good already. Do the same. So copy it. And move these parts over there. And I'm going to do the same with the front window. So we got this part. I'm just going to duplicate it. And also make it a bit smaller. So now I've got this part. Reflect it, copy. Reflect it once more, but horizontally. Hit OK. Bring it back in. And that's that. And get rid of the stuff we do not need. Alright. So now I've got everything the way I want it to. So once more, I'm just going to copy this, lock this layer, make a layer for my outlines, go to Object, Live Paint, Make, and now I'm just going to color in the spaces that need to be entirely black. Okay, so it's looking really nice. Now I'm going to go to Object. I'm going to do one thing more, so I'm going to fill in these with red because I want to use them to also have a silhouette of the tire and to cut out the shading. So Object, Live Paint, Expand. The magic wand, so the fill is set to 0 tolerance. So if I click this, I'll be selecting all the black shapes. I still need to expand everything, sorry. So now everything is fill. Now I'm going to do the same. So now I've got all the strokes. I'm going to split these tires and fill them. And then I'm going to paste this in place and join everything. Okay. With the tires selected, I'm going to copy them and paste them in the back. And then I'm going to bring in the tires a bit more and use them to extract the underlaying part. And then I'm going to use another general shape to get rid of the parts I no longer need. Range, send to back, make it black. Alright. Draw on a rectangle. Arrange, send to back. I'll still got my tires, which I'll be needing to get rid of the overlapping part of the shading. So I'm going to bring these parts in with the direct selection tool, just to give the sense that the van isn't floating, but it's actually standing on the ground. And that's that. So I'm going to select all of these shapes and I'm just going to join them together. So we've got our outline, and that's that for the first part. Okay, so for the second part of this tutorial, I'll be showing you how I apply color to my outlines, and I'm also going to bring in some highlights and shading just to give it a bit more depth and to make it pop a little bit more. So in my layers panel, I've already added in all the layers I'll be needing to do this. So I've got my outlines and I save my line work. I've got a background layer, I've got a fill layer, a layer for my windows, my wheels, my shading, and my highlights. So to start off, I'm going to select my entire outline. And you can see it's a group now. So I'm going to press Command 8, and this will make it into a compound path. The reason why I do this is because it's easier to use the Pathfinder if you've got a compound path. So you could like use the paint bucket tool and fill in the entire van, but I like to do it another way. So the thing I do is I'm going to draw a shape on my fill layer, and I've got some swatches ready. So I'm going to pick this blue color like this, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select my outlines and my background shape, and I'm going to use the trim function in the Pathfinder. So what this will do is it will exclude the outlines from the blue color, but I won't get rid of the outlines, so they will also stay intact. So let me show you how this works. So I selected my trim option, and if I select my magic wand with my fill color tolerance to 0, I can select all my black colors. So if I cut them away, you can see that I'm left with this shape. So this is my color. So I don't need the outside. So using my direct selection tool, I select this part and I'm just going to delete it. And the same goes for this bottom part. So I'm just going to ungroup it. And this I don't need because you can see through. So I'm going to delete this. Then I'm going to go to my outlines layer, and I'm going to bring this to the fill layer, and I'm going to place my outlines back into place. That's why I cut them away. So to paste something into place, you can press a Command F or Command Shift V. What Command F does is it pastes the select subject on top of that subject, while Command Shift V just pastes it on top of everything that's on the entire layer. Okay, so with this done, I'm just going to lock my outlines. And one thing that I didn't do making my outlines, but what I'd like to do is I would like to add in hard shading in these bumper parts. So the way I'm going to do this is actually rather simple, and it's a technique I'll be using a lot for coloring the van. But I selected both shapes, I made a copy, and I'm just going to paste them in the shading area. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy them again, and I'm going to paste them into place, and then I'm going to bring them up a little like this. So if I change the color, you can see that I've now got like this shape on top of this shape. Might be a bit too high, so I'm going to bring it back down a little bit. And now what I'm going to do is, using the Pathfinder, I'm going to select both shapes, and I'm going to select to use the minus front option. So now I'm just left with this part, and I'm going to do the same over here. Minus front, select both shapes, change the color to the black. So now I've got my bumpers with a bit more depth. I'm going to cut them away, and I'm also going to paste them on my outlines layer like this. Select everything on the outlines layer simply by clicking on the square over here, and then I'm just going to unite everything once more. So that's that. And now I can go on by selecting colors for the van and adjusting them if necessary. So for the top part, I'm going to select this like teal kind of color. I'm going to do the same for the wheels. I'm going to also select this one. I'm going to do the same over here. For this part, I'm also going to use the teal. For the light, I'm going to use the teal. And for the front window, And then for these windows, I'll be using the dark red, like this. So if you zoom out, you've got a nice color palette going, and everything's coming together quite nicely. For this part, I'm also going to use the red. So you could also do this by using the paint bucket, but you can also do it this way. So it's just what you prefer to do. Okay, always remember to save every now and then. Now I'm going to start by finishing the wheels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the colors in my wheels. I'm going to copy them. I'm going to lock my fill layer, and I'm just going to paste them into place on my wheels layer. So like that. And I'm going to pretend that the light is coming from the top, and it's going to hit on these rims and stuff. So for starters, I'm going to make the circle a bit smaller, and I'm going to give it this red color. And what I want to do next is once more copy this circle, paste it into place. I'll give it another color so you can see what I'm doing. So let's say the blue, and I'm going to move it up a little. I'm going to make it a bit bigger until I have something like this. And all I'm going to do is once more use the minus front option, and we're left with the shape. So if you zoom out, you kind of like get the intention that of you kind of get like the feel that that this part is shaded. So I'm going to go a step back because I actually want to save this circle to make my highlight. So I'm going to do the same step and minus front, place the circle, paste the circle back into place, change the color, and I'm just going to do the same step. So I'm going to duplicate this down, change the color so I can see what I'm doing. And let me see. I'm going to get rid of this one, but I'm going to make it a bit bigger and a bit more subtle. Like this, minus front. Yeah, it's looking better. And for the highlight, I'm just going to use a white. So now you've got like a nice looking rim. I'm going to cut this one away because it has to be on the highlights layer. Sorry for that. Paste it into place. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to duplicate both shapes using the option key and holding the shift button, and I'm going to place them over here. All right, so that's the first part. Now, since we have like this part and this part, there will also be a shadow casting on this part of the wheel. So for that, I'm going to select this wheel, and I want to. So if you look at it, so the shape isn't fully filled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press divide, and then I'm going to join them again. And this way it's a filled circle once more. Now I'm going to duplicate it down, make it red once more, and just play a bit with the shape until you're satisfied with how it looks. Repeat the process. So repeat the step, minus front. So I'm left with this shape, and I'm just going to color it red. And since our outlines are on top of it, everything will stay nicely behind the outline. Same goes for this part with the wheel. So once more, I'm going to go step back because I want to have the shape. I'm going to duplicate the shape, bring it to front so I can use it for the other tire. Make it red. Place this in the middle. And I'm going to make the shadow a bit more heavy. Something like this. Maybe bring it up. So minus front. And give it the same red color. So if you zoom out, you kind of like get the feel that the tire is underneath the frame of the car. And that's exactly what we want. And once more, for this part of the tire, I'm going to divide it and then bring them back together, duplicate the shape up, change the color so you can see what you're doing a bit better. Just play a bit with the shape, make it a bit bigger perhaps, and just subtract it, minus front, give it the red color, and you can simply duplicate it and paste it into place on the other rim. And then one final thing I like to do is I could have done it in the outlines, but I like to do it here. So I'm going to draw another circle in the center, and I'm going to change my fill to stroke. I'm going to give it a nice stroke. I'm going to cut it up in the middle, and I'm going to go to my stroke window. I'm going to apply the first width profile, and I'm going to increase the weight of the stroke, and I'm also going to make it black. That's a bit too big. And bring it up a bit. So, like, yeah, you get something like that. So that's looking rather good, I think. So I'm going to zoom out, and I just want to show you like the difference between the wheels without or with shading. So it definitely adds and gives a sense of depth to the car. So this is the way I do it. And I'm going to even add in a bit more for the highlight. So I'm just going to draw an ellipse in the center of this to even give the highlight like a bit more power. Something like this will do, I think. So also while you're busy, zoom in and out can definitely help. I don't really like the highlight. I'm also going to delete it for now, and I'm just going to work on my shading first, and then I'm going to continue on my highlight layer. So I'm just going to get rid of it for now, and I'm going to lock the wheels. And wheels is actually also shading, so I just like to make it apart. I'm going to copy it, cut it, and paste it on my shading layer now. So for the wheels layer, I'm actually done. And if you're satisfied with your profile, be sure to go to Object and choose Expand Appearance. So it's another thing you can do, like You can also cut this away and once more paste it on your outline layer, select all your outlines and unite them. So now you've got everything with the same color on the same layer. Okay, so for the windows, I'm going to unlock my fill layer and I'm going to select all of these shapes to work on my windows. I'm going to copy it once more, lock my fill layer. I'm also going to lock the shading layer and I'm just going to paste them into place on my windows layer. Once more, unite them, hit Command 8 to make a compound path. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to draw these strokes at an angle, something like this will do. And I'm just going to color them black for now. And I'm going to increase the weight of the stroke. And I'm just going to make a duplicate. And if you press Command D, it's going to repeat the step. So it's going to fill everything with this line work like this. So what I'm going to do next is I want to use these diagonal lines to create some reflections in the windows. So I'm also going to play with the weight of the stroke to have them vary a bit, and also the distance from the strokes to each other. So make some a bit smaller, some a bit bigger, play around with it. So I also just use my arrow keys to increase the stroke weight. If you hold the Option key, it goes faster and with bigger units. So just play around with it a bit until you get something you're satisfied with. I'm also going to change my fill to this yellow because I'm going to use that color for the reflection, so it gives me makes it easier to see what I'm doing if I'm satisfied with the result. So just space them out a bit. Maybe watch out that you don't overdo it, but there's actually not much that can go wrong with this. I'm going to get rid of this one. So this is enough, I think. So we're almost done with our strokes. And for this example, I'm just going to keep them clean. Sometimes I like to apply an effect so they're a bit wavy or something like that, or I give them like a rough edge. But since the illustration is looking pretty clean altogether, I'm also going to keep my reflections a bit more clean in this case. But if you're planning on making an illustration for your own, feel free to do whatever you think looks good. Okay, so that's that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save that one and I'm going to select all my lines, my strokes. I'm going to go to Object. I'm going to hit Expand. So now it's gone from stroke to fill. I'm going to unite them, and once more I'm going to make a compound path using Command 8. I'm going to select my red shape, and then I'm going to choose to intersect everything. So as you can see, the window shape intersected with the strokes, and now you've got like this idea of a reflection in the windows to add a bit more depth to the actual van. So I'm going to make this one red also. Copy it. Seems that I missed this part. And paste it in place on the window layer. And for the front window, I'm just going to follow the curve a bit more, or the angle of the line of the window itself. Looks a bit better to me. Okay, make it a bit bigger maybe, so you get like the sense of some light hitting the front of the window. Once more, object, expand, like this. Select the window and intersect shapes once more. So that's that for the windows. Pretty simple actually, once you get to know this technique. So be sure to save every now and then. So I'm going to keep this on my windows layer, so without reflections and with the reflections, so it does make a big difference. And now I'm going to start by working on the shading. And I'm just going to look for places where I want to darken the van to give it a sense of depth. So like the bottom part in its entirety, I'm just going to make it a bit darker, and I'm going to use the red for that. And now I'm going to select these fill shapes. And use them to once more intersect with the shading. So same technique as with the windows. I like to use the Pathfinder a lot for these things. Intersect, and make sure you just change the color back to red. So the object on top of the other object will determine which color it will take. So we've got like this this bar over here. I'm also going to throw in a nice little part of shading, so it looks as if the bar is like sticking out a bit. It can be very subtle, something like this. So that will do, and be sure that you look at it from a distance every now and then. So you don't have like it's just easier to see if everything is looking good. If you're working too close and you don't look from a distance, you might be working on something too much, and if you zoom out, it might not be visible or something like that. So zoom out every now and then. Okay, for the light, I'm going to copy it and paste it in place on my shading layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a duplicate, and I'm going to use this duplicate to cut out like the shape. So I'm using the minus friend, and I'm going to make it red. So now you also have like the feeling like this part of the light is the top part, and the other part is shaded, so it's the bottom part. Okay. To finish off this shading, I'm going to use the pen tool, and I'm going to draw in a line. I'm going to draw it over here. I'm going to increase. Whoa. Sorry. Something. Increase the weight of the line. And I'm going to bring it up a bit more. What I'm going to do is I'm going to round this corner, so shading is a bit more organic, and I'm going to expand the appearance, and I'm going to redraw the shape, so I'm going to make it a bit higher so it matches a bit better. Like that. So as you can see, not everything always goes by plan from the first time, so just make sure that you adjust it once more. Okay, so I'm going to turn off this layer, and I'm going to unlock the fill layer because I will be needing these shapes once more. To intersect with the shading part I just added. So make a compound path and just do the same. Hit intersect and turn it red like this. And now you can see that like this isn't connecting, so I'm just going to color it in like this, and then I'm going to select all my shapes, join them together, and that's that. And I'm going to do the same for the front part. So I'm just going to draw in a bit of a line like this, and increase the thickness, and once more I'm going to round the corner, but I'm going to bring this up so it connects a bit better with the line. I'm going to do this another way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw an ellipse as a fill, and I'm just going to make it hit with this layer. I'm going to make it bigger. And where the shapes intersect, I'm just going to say, well, make sure that the right circle is in front. I'm just going to say minus front. So we get like the same effect. And what you can do is use the fill shape once more to clean it up a bit. So paste it into place and just intersect them once more, make it red. So that's that for the shading part. Since this bar is also sticking out, we're also going to add in a subtle shading over here. I'm going to lock the layer of the fill once more, and using the pen tool, I'm going to draw this line. Increase the thickness, so something like that is good enough. So you can eyeball it a bit around this corner, zoom out, and that's that. And then you can go like object, expand, hit OK, and join it with the rest, maybe even round this a bit. So everything's like coming together nicely. I also want to add in a bit of shading over here. Once more, using the same technique, just drawing a straight line, using the red color for my shading. Increase the width of the stroke. And for this part, you can even like just manually bring in your nodes and say object expand. So there you have it. Okay, so everything's coming together quite nice. I'm going to change this to yellow. I'm going to copy it, paste and place on the shading layer, and do the same thing once more. But before you do it, once more, make sure you make a compound part out of it. So I'm going to bring this up. Like this. And then I'm going to do minus front, make it red. Hold on. I'm going to move it to the right, so that we get like this nice sense of depth. So that's looking better. Okay. To give this a more rounded feel, I'll be adding a highlight, and I'm going to add in another shading part for the bottom. And once more, I'm just going to use the pen tool. And I'm going to follow the curve of the shape. Whoa. Whoops. So watch out that you have the entire piece selected instead of an anchor point. I'm going to round the corner a bit. And since I'll be needing the same shape for my highlights, I'm going to copy it, paste it into place on my highlights layer, and I'm just going to lock it. Object, expand, like this. And so that's that for shading. Save it, lock the shading layer, and now I'm going to work on the highlights. So I've got this highlight, I made a duplicate out of it, and for this I'm going to use my white once more. So it's actually looking okay already. Object, expand. I just like to turn my strokes into fill. For the rooftop, I'm also using my layer, and I'm going to add in a nice big highlight. And I'm going to go to object, expand. So I've got the shape, but the lines are sticking out. So if you go to outline mode, you can also see this. So what I'm going to do next is unlock the fill layer, copy the rooftop, paste it in the highlight layer, and once more hit intersect and just color it white. So for the bumper parts, and then we're actually almost finished, I'm going to add in some more highlights. And I'm going to turn these to red. So for the highlight, I'll be using my yellow swatch in this. So I'm going to lock the fill layer, select this highlight, hit object, expand, okay, make a duplicate, and place it in this part of the bumper, and just bring it in so it's knocked out by the outlines. And I was going for a bit more of like a clean look. I'm going to add in one more subtle highlight for a detail over here. Use the yellow, make it a bit less thick, something like this will do. Bring it up a bit. So that's that. Oh yeah, before I forget, I'm also going to bring in the highlight to make the wheel feel a bit more rounded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw in another circle. And just give it this red color for now. Make it a bit smaller. Copy it down. And bring the shape in a bit. And I'm going to make it a bit bigger than I did make it white. And then I'm going to copy it to the other wheel. So there you have it. I'm going to make my yellow a bit darker, I think, because I'm having a hard time seeing the white on the yellow. So I'm going to hit the preview. And I'm going to increase the saturation a bit. So you get to see the white highlights a bit better. Hit OK. So I think we're about done. So this is how I come up with this cool fan in Illustrator. I hope you guys liked the tutorial and that you learned something from it, of course. It was my first time doing this, so excuse me for my Belgian accent. I hope everything was a bit clear. So I'm doing some final adjustments, but overall, I'm pretty pleased with how this is looking for the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out my artboard, and I've got this background layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in this background and change it to this yellow. And for the outline, so they're like entirely black for the moment. What I like to do is give them like an half black so that they're still dark, but like a bit more warmth in the color. So that's that. I'm going to lock the background, unlock all of these layers, and I'm just going to position it a bit better in the middle. Yeah, so we're done. Thanks for watching, and I'll be doing more of these videos in the future. So if you like the video, feel free to subscribe so you will be updated whenever I'm posting new videos. And yeah, see you next time.